Hello, students, and welcome. Today we are going to start a very interesting chapter called Life Processes. And to begin, we're going to ask ourselves a very simple question, or at least it seems simple at first glance. So I want you to just think about this for a moment. How do we tell if something is alive? When you look at, say, a dog running in the park, and then you look at a stone lying on the ground, you just know one is alive and the other isn't, right? But what is it exactly that tells you that? Now, if I asked you all this question in class, I am sure most of you would say, movement. And that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? We see a dog running, a bird flying, a person walking, and we immediately think, okay, it's moving, so it must be alive. But let's challenge that idea for a second. Is it really that simple? Is movement that we can see the only proof of life? What if something is completely still? Does that automatically mean it is not alive? Let's dig a little deeper, shall we? Okay, now look at these examples. A running cow. Yes, it's moving, so we say it's alive. Easy. But what about a person who is sleeping? They are hardly moving at all, maybe just breathing a little. But are they alive? Of course they are. And now what about a plant? It doesn't walk or run, but we all know plants are living things. So, you see, visible movement can't be the only answer. So if it's not always about the big movements that we can see with our eyes, then what is the real defining characteristic of life? Well, the secret lies in a different kind of movement, one that is completely invisible to us. It's movement happening at a very small scale. And this brings us to a very important idea, molecular movement. You see, all living organisms are made of very tiny structures called cells. And inside these cells, there are even smaller things called molecules. These molecules are not just sitting there. They are constantly moving, constantly working. They are carrying out repair, doing maintenance, basically keeping the whole system running smoothly. And this maintenance job, it's a full-time job. It has to go on all the time, even when you are sleeping or just sitting quietly listening to me. Right now, your cells are hard at work. This internal repair job never ever stops. So, now that we know molecular movement is so important, this brings up a fascinating puzzle. There's something that really challenges our definition of alive and has been a topic of debate for scientists for a long time. And that puzzle is viruses. What do you think? Are viruses alive? This is a huge debate in biology, and the entire controversy is because of this very idea of molecular movement that we've been talking about. Here is the problem with viruses. When a virus is just outside a living cell, say on a table, it is completely inactive, inert. It shows no molecular movement whatsoever. It's basically like a tiny, non-living particle. But the moment it enters a living host cell, it suddenly springs into action. It takes over the cell's machinery and uses it to make more copies of itself. So, because it can't do any of this on its own, scientists say it lives on the borderline between the living and the non-living. Actually, this example of the virus helps us make our definition of life much clearer. It tells us that to be considered truly alive, an organism must be able to perform these essential maintenance functions by itself, using its own internal machinery. And all these functions, this entire set of maintenance jobs that organisms perform to stay alive and survive, we give them a collective name. We call them the life processes. And that, students, is what this whole chapter is about. These life processes are the absolute fundamental activities that keep an organism going. Everything from getting energy to moving it around to getting rid of waste products. So in this chapter, we are going to study the four main or key life processes. So what are these four key processes? Well, you can think of them as the four pillars that support life. First, there is nutrition, which is how organisms take in food. Second, we have respiration. That's the process of getting energy from the food. Third is transportation, which is all about moving substances around the body. And finally, excretion, which is how the body gets rid of waste. We will study each of these in detail. All right, we have discussed quite a few things today. So to finish, let's summarize everything into one single important idea. What is the main takeaway from our discussion today? It's this. Life is not really defined by the big, visible things we see on the outside, like running or jumping. Instead, life is defined by the constant, continuous, invisible work happening inside every single cell. To be alive is to be in a constant state of self-maintenance. Please, keep this very fundamental idea in mind as we move forward to explore each of the life processes.